On first day of January 1946, Japan's Emperor Hirohito surprised his subjects with the news that he was not descended from the Shinto sun goddess Amaterasu Omikami, and that, the emperor is not a living god. He added that his people had to proceed unflinchingly toward the elimination of misguided practices of the past, including the false conception that the emperor is divine and that the Japanese people are superior to other races and fated to rule the world. The admission was published in newspapers throughout Japan. On January 2, in Leon, Mexico, federal troops called in by the governor of the state of Guanajuato fired into a crowd of demonstrators, killing at least 40 people. The U.S. Army partially lifted a ban against marriage between American soldiers and enemy nationals, allowing servicemen to marry Austrian citizens. The ban against marriage of Germans was not lifted until December 11. On January 3, at a congressional hearing, Admiral Harold R. Stark testified that more than 2 months before the United States entered the Second World War, President Roosevelt had ordered American warships to destroy German and Italian naval, land, and air forces encountered, if requested by British officers. Poland nationalized its main industries, with passage of a law on taking public ownership of the basic branches of the national economy. On 4th day of January, the United States Department of War announced a slowdown in demobilization of U.S. Army soldiers in the Pacific Theater, cutting Army discharges by 60%, from 800,000 down to 300,000 per month. In the week that followed, American soldiers around the world protested, in the Philippines, France, Guam, Germany, India and the United States. The War Department reversed the decision as a result of pressure from the "Bring 'em Home" movement. General Douglas MacArthur, Supreme Commander of the Allied powers during the occupation of Japan, began a purge of the Japanese government, with the goal of removing undesirable personnel from office. Over 2.5 years, there were 210,287 people removed or barred from public office. A series of tornadoes swept through East Texas, killing 28 people and injuring 310 in Anderson, Angelina and Nacogdoches counties. On January 5, Adolf Eichmann, the Nazi German architect of the final solution, escaped from the American detention camp in Oberdockstetten, where he had eluded detection under the alias. Eichmann then assumed the name of Otto Nenninger and remained in hiding. In 1950, he made his way to Austria, then Italy, and as Ricardo Clement, started a new life in Argentina. He avoided capture until May 2, 1960, when agents of Israel's Mossad kidnapped him, and was hanged in 1962. On January 6, the first democratic elections were held in Vietnam, and the Viet Minh Party, led by Ho Chi Minh, won 230 of the 300 seats in the National Assembly. On January 7, the Allies restored Austria as a sovereign republic, with the borders it had before its 1937 annexation by Germany, but continued to administer the nation in 4 occupation zones. The largest cities in each zone were Innsbruck, French, Salzburg, American, Graz, British, and the area around Vienna, Soviet. Vienna itself was occupied by all 4 powers. France resumed its protectorate relationship over Cambodia, following an agreement signed by King Norodom Sihanouk. Under the pact, France would manage all of Cambodia's foreign affairs and grant autonomy to the Cambodian people. On January 8, Germany's hereditary health court system was formally abolished by the Allied powers. From 1934 through 1945, the courts ordered surgery for the sterilization of 400,000 persons with hereditary defects such as mental retardation, schizophrenia, and epilepsy. The system provided for an appellate court, but the orders were upheld 97% of the time. The last Japanese prisoners of war in the United States departed, on board a ship from Angel Island, California, for repatriation. On January 9, Laszlo Bardasi, who had served as Prime Minister of Hungary in 1941 and 1942, and later collaborated with the Nazis during the German occupation of Hungary, was executed by hanging in Budapest. Harold Cole, a British sergeant called by some, the worst traitor of World War II, was killed in a shootout with police in Paris. Sergeant Cole had landed in France as part of the British Expeditionary Force, then deserted in 1941, betraying more than 150 people to the German Gestapo, 50 of whom were executed. On January 10, 1945, the first meeting of the United Nations General Assembly convened, with delegates from 51 nations meeting in London. British Prime Minister Clement Attlee opened the session. In secret voting for the first President of the United Nations General Assembly, Paul-Henri Spaak of Belgium won the post, 28–23, over Trygve Lie of Norway. On January 11, the People's Republic of Albania was proclaimed at noon, with communist leader Enver Hoxha as the nation's prime minister. 2 months later, a new constitution proclaimed Hoxha's Albanian Workers' Party to be the sole force, and Marxism-Leninism as the ideology of the People's Socialist Republic of Albania. Elie Lescott was overthrown as president of Haiti in a coup led by Colonel Paul Maglare, who then installed Franck Levade as the new president. On January 12, Anwar Sadat, aged 27, was arrested in Cairo on charges of conspiracy in the assassination of Amin Uthman. After 2+1/2 years imprisonment, he was acquitted, and, in 1970, became president of Egypt. On January 13, a ceasefire took effect at midnight, Chongqing time, between the two sides in the Chinese Civil War. General George C. Marshall of the United States mediated the terms of the truce between General Chang Chun of the Nationalists and Zhou Enlai of the Communists. On 14th day of January, 18 nations signed the Agreement on Reparation from Germany, which took effect 10 days later. The Soviet Union ratified a treaty signed between it and Poland on August 16, 1945, with most former Polish territory east of the Curzon Line becoming parts of the Ukrainian SSR and the Byelorussian SSR. On January 15, 14 coal miners were killed in an explosion at Havako, West Virginia, but another 253 escaped, despite the force of the blast.